Welcome to Religion Unplugged. I'm welcoming Alexei Lidov, who is an internationally known scholar of Byzantine art. He has been director of, let me get it right, Alexei, of the Center for World Culture at Moscow State University.
Yes, I'm a research professor of the Institute for World Culture of Moscow State University.
And the author of more than 20 books related to Byzantine art.
Already 33, to be
30,
honest.
30, let's be honest, Alexei, 33.
Yes, okay.
Yes. And so we've never been to Istanbul together, have we?
No, strangely enough, but it did not happen.
No,
Well,
supposed to a couple times. I've been there, I counted up at least 4 times. I imagine you've been there more, maybe. And we're today we want to talk about the transfer of Chora Church, which I'll ask you to explain more about, into a mosque. It was I read 2 conflicting things in the articles I read. One, that there was a church there from the 6th century, and then the other that in the 12th or 13th, the church as we see it now was completed with the frescoes and mosaics. And you'll correct me on all of that. And it was turned into a mosque not until 1511, after the conquest in 1453 by Mehmet II. And then it was turned back into a church, officially, I read, in 1958. Not a church, into a museum in 1958. Excuse me, I misspoke. And now Erdogan has given the order and turned it over to religious affairs. And I can't tell from the articles I read if the actual transfer back into a mosque with services has happened or not. So we need to check on that. But the intention clearly is to do so. Whether it has actually happened or not, I can't tell from the articles I've read. Maybe you know. So Alexei, why is this church important? What is its history, and why does it matter?
yes. First of all, it's one of the major masterpieces of Byzantine art in the world. And certainly the second monument in Istanbul after Hagia Sophia, after St. Sophia Cathedral, which was converted into the mosque a little bit earlier. Well, but again, according to the same demand by the President Erdogan, and after big discussion and disagreements with the international community, UNESCO and others, but for him, for Erdogan, what actually happened and why after so many years, because Hagia Sophia was converted into the mosque in 1935, and another great monument of Byzantine art, Chora Church or Chora Monastery, or as it's called in Turkish, Kariye Cami. Well, it was converted into mosque. It was converted a little bit later than Hagia Sophia too, because Hagia Sophia was the first place converted into the mosque in Constantinople after the conquer of 1453, after the fall of Constantinople. And for Mehmed the Conqueror, Mehmed II, Turkish Sultan, it was a symbolic gesture of his victory over not over Byzantium only, but over the Christian world and the victory of Islam in general. So then in 20th century, the famous Atatürk, the founder of Turkish Republic and contemporary Turkey after Osmanian period, he decided also as a kind of political gesture to convert or to change the status of these two churches into museums. First of all, to convert Hagia Sophia in 1935, and in 1945, Chora Church became a new museum, and and what happened some years ago, actually 4 years ago, was the decision by Erdogan, also very symbolic and very much politically charged, to, in a way, to reconvert these original churches, then mosque, then museums, and to reconvert them to the mosques again, as a part of his ideology, which we usually call the political Islam. So the idea was to get the support of his Muslim electorate, which accepted this conversion with great enthusiasm, while in contradiction with the reaction of the rest of international cultural and museum communities of the world, which protested against this conversion and saying that it's a kind of barbarism and a great risk for the monuments and so on. And it was a kind of scandal that time, but scandal without any consequences and without any practical moves from the international organization, with one exception, by the way, and I'm a little bit proud of this, because the only exception which protested not by words, but the practical gesture, was the International Association of Byzantine Studies, which declared its congress in Istanbul in 1920, and after the decision of Erdogan about conversion.
You mean 2020, Alexei?
Sorry, 2020. Sorry. Well, and after the decision of the conversion into the mosques, they canceled the International Congress in Istanbul, and it's really a huge event with some thousands of participants, and it happened once in 5 years in different big cities of the world, mostly in Europe, and so the only organization who did something practically was this Association of Byzantinists of the world, who decided to cancel the Congress in Istanbul and to remove it to Venice on the next year.
Wow.
So, And well, so Erdogan did not pay any attention to these protests, and Hagia Sophia was converted in very solemn and symbolic way, with the references to the to the great victory of the Islamic world. I mean, the conquer of Constantinople in 1453. And during this solemn ceremony, there were some symbolic details and gestures with a direct reference to this great event. So it was in a way a new victory over Christianity, which happened some years ago. I mean, of course, symbolically, but the message was clear. So it is a new victory over a new Sultan, a new Mehmed II, who, well, and also it's also interesting, and from the religious political aspect, because as you probably know, the Atatürk, the founder of the state, is a figure who is in veneration in Turkey, and you may see his images of every banknotes and everywhere as a symbol, as a main symbol of the nation. But what Erdogan did was practically against this policy to create a lay state of Turkey, which is going to the Europe. So it was a gesture to cancel not the museum status of the great church, but to cancel the almost 100 years of Turkish international policy.
So,
and the story of Chora Monastery is related to this event, because the original decision was to convert another great museum and the gem of Byzantine art, Chora Church, reconverted into the mosque. And it should be opened very soon, this May. So a little bit more than a month. Originally, it was announced that the mosque will be opened after the restoration, while in February. But then they changed the date to this May, and we don't know what we are able to see, because the most part of the walls and vaults of this monastery covered by most beautiful mosaics and frescoes of the world. Really, well, one of the peaks of Byzantine art.
And that art, Alexei, let me interrupt that. The art is mostly 13th century?
The art mostly, no, well, a bit of history of this place.
Right.
The first church on this place appeared probably in the 4th century. So from the very beginning.
So very early.
And it's not in the center, by the way, it's not in the center of historical Constantinople, but at the edge of the city, nearby the walls.
It was in a garden, right? Doesn't Chora mean in the garden?
Yes, but I plan to talk about this later because it's very interesting topic.
Okay.
What does it mean, Chora?
Okay.
Because
Okay.
it's a key notion from many aspects.
I'm getting
I mean, the original church was in the 4th century, rebuilt later. Then the most part of the building was constructed in the 11th century, and finally it got a complete reconstruction in early 14th century between 1305 and 1320, the very beginning of the 14th century.
the first church was built not long after Constantine started the city, but it was
Yes,
in the countryside.
I mean the first church on this place, but we have nothing from this church.
Okay.
Only the information that this church existed and
Okay.
how it looked like, nobody knows.
Okay.
But
from very early is the main.
From the architectural point of view, a lot of remains of the 11th century, and then the next reconstruction and renovation of the church happened in early 14th century, in the time so-called Paleologian Renaissance.
Yeah.
At the time of the Emperor Manuel II, Paleologus, and it was done by very interesting and important person. His name was Theodoros Mitohitos, and he was in our term a prime minister of the emperor. I mean, in Turkish term, the first vizier, and actually the second person in the state after the emperor. Moreover, he was a great politician and a great theologian, because we know, and poet and writer, and we have his writings, several of them, and so he was one of the most educated person of his time, a great intellectual, and he ordered the renovation of the church. He invited the best masters of his time to do this work for the decoration by mosaics and frescoes. So, but few words about the quality.
Right.
We were able to see on the screen just an example, maybe most famous mosaic of the Chora Church, right above the entrance into the church.
Yeah.
And quality, because for us, what does it mean for us, for people living in the West European standards of beauty and artistic achievements? For us, it's the time of Giotto. It's exactly yes.
Right.
It's exactly the time of Giotto, and more or less the same years as famous chapel of Scrovegni in Padua.
Right.
And for us, Giotto,
for listeners, Giotto's chapel in Padua was recently restored.
Yes.
So you can see the full color, and we've been there together.
Yes, and for us, I mean, in at least in the frame of Western art history, Giotto is the top of artistic achievements of his time,
Yeah.
the greatest artist. But I should say, as a professional art historian, who are able to appreciate quality, the quality, artistic quality of, for example, Chora mosaics and frescoes are higher than Giotto.
Oh,
So
oh,
it means
that's
that this art,
those
uh,
are fighting words.
I'm talking not about personal tastes or preferences. I'm talking about the quality. It's this art in the Chora monastery is much more sophisticated from any point of view, including theologian and artistic. And it's also interesting that in the 19th century, when the most of these mosaics and frescoes were covered by the plaster, mm, as it should be in the mosque, because normally any mosque do not allow any icons.
Right.
So, and some first researchers, including even great Russian art historians, who came to see these uh, fragments of this art, which were visible under the cover, they did not believe in the 19th century. I mean, our stereotypes were so strong that they did not believe that it was made by Greeks. And so even great Russian art historians, Nikodim Kandakov, the most important scholar in Byzantine art of the time, he said that it should be Italians invited to Constantinople to do this art because it's absolutely amazing and incredible quality of these images. And according to their ideas and imagination, such quality could be only Italian, but not Byzantine. So it's just about some amazing art historical mistakes. But
Right.
now of course, everybody agreed that it's a masterpiece of Greek Byzantine art, but made by the best masters of so-called Constantinopolitan school, of the highest level. So, and
Explain.
we could see this art in amazing, not just quality, but quantity, because in several parts of this monastery existed hundreds of pictures on
Right.
different subjects and various cycles, including the very one of the fullest cycles of the life of the Virgin
Right.
and evangelical cycle and many other sometimes very interesting images from the iconographical point of view.
In the church sanctuary, as I remember,
Mm-hmm.
almost all of the mosaics are gone. That what I
No,
remember
no, in the
in
not
the
all.
mosaics,
In the main space of the church, yes, uh, only few remains. They remained three scenes, two images of Christ and the Virgin, uh, flanking the sanctuary barrier. And on the western wall, there is an image of the Dormition of the Virgin.
Okay.
Do
Do you have those images
well,
in your presentation here? I mean, what I'm looking at is the Christ over the entrance, which is
yes,
stunning.
this is the
Giotto
the
would have
first
liked
image,
it.
the first image where well you are able to see when you are coming in. The
Right.
church will be this one over the first entrance because there is another entrance.
Yes.
And there is this, and most mosaics survived in two areas, so-called narthex, a kind of what you call a long porch,
Right.
and exonarthex, so the external porch. I mean, two preliminary areas before the church. And there is also another space covered by frescoes,
Right.
also of the highest level.
Yeah.
Frescoes, they are in so-called paraclesion. I mean, the special chapel created as a burial place of donors and people related to the construction of the church. And
There's
now we're coming to the very interesting point about Chora. What does it mean, Chora? Because in the most of contemporary guidebooks, I think practically in all of them, you may find that Chora means a countryside and something at the edge of the city and related to the location of the church nearby the city walls. But it is not true. So it's something which became standard and 100 times repeated in several guidebooks,
yeah.
but it is not true.
I can attest to that, Alexei, having read several guidebooks that said this. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's not difficult. You may just open
Yeah.
practically anyone.
Yeah.
Yes. And what does it mean, Chora? You are able to see on the picture, which is in front of us, we see the image of Christ, the Pantocrator, with very interesting inscription. I mean, to the left and to the right. And you may read in Greek, in this inscription, I mean, Jesus Christ, Jesus Christos, and then strange word, I mean, it's Greek article, hora ton zonton, which can be translated as the space of living. So it means Jesus Christos, the space of living.
Wow.
And then, and interesting that this
theologically, what does that mean?
Yes, it's very interesting, and it was a subject of my special research and a small discovery. And these inscriptions repeated several times in the church. I can show the next image above the next entrance.
There it is again.
I mean, where you were able to see Christ enthroned, and this famous Theodoros Mitochitos presenting to Christ a model of the church. And again, besides Christ, the same inscription, Chora Zonton. And but we have one more image of Christ with the same inscription. I mean this one.
Oh.
Inside the church, one of three images, the icon of Christ, and we are able to see nearby his head the same words, horaton zonton, the space of living. So three main images of Christ, and 3 times repeated the strange characteristic, hora. And what does it mean, hora? Hora means space in Greece, in very broad sense, space, but also space in philosophical and theological way. So it means that Hora was one of the names of God. Exactly like Hagia Sophia was not the name of the particular saint, but one of the names of God. Sophia, the holy wisdom, the wisdom of God. And by the way, main churches of Constantinople had similar dedication. Irina, it's also again not the name of the saint, but Irina means peace. Peace is one of the name of God.
So it sounds to me, Hora, living, the space of living, it sounds like the answer from when Moses asked God, "Who are you?" And God's response was, "You tell them that I am."
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Hora is very a very powerful and very theologically important notion in Greek philosophy, because the first time Hora was used by Plato in his dialogue Timaeus, when he said that Hora is one of the 3 categories which appeared before the world was created.
Right.
So something more than basic, something a kind of origins of everything. And Hora is one of these 3 notions which appeared before the world was created.
Oh my!
And then
profound.
And in Neoplatonic, it became in Neoplatonic tradition, it became divine category. And also, it's very interesting because for Theodoros Mitochitos, it was extremely important, and certainly, I mean, this Hora program was his intervention. It was not only in the images of Christ, but also in some images of the Virgin. And one of these images of the Virgin, just opposite the image of Christ, Horaton Zonton, we can see the Virgin with the child,
right,
in the mandorla,
right,
and inscribed even in more interesting way, inscribed the hora to ahoritu. It means Meter two, the Mother of God, the container of uncontainable,
Wow.
or the space of what exists beyond any space.
Wow.
So it means that idea of virgin who embodied something which rationally could not be embodied, something which existed beyond any material evidence and material category. So I mean, so the mystery of incarnation, and also in Chora, in Chora Church, we can see some images with this of the Virgin with the same inscription, the Chora to Ahol, the container of uncontainable.
So let's get back to them turning this back into a mosque now. I mean, what you're telling me is how important the iconography and inscriptions in this church are.
It's crucial for understanding of many things, even the name of the church.
Right.
Which is not a countryside, but the name of God. You may feel the difference.
Yes.
Yeah, and
which makes turning it into a mosque even more significant, Alexei, because it's saying our God conquers your God.
Yes, and so it's in Byzantine terms, it's one of the most sublime dedication you can imagine, comparable with the Hagia Sophia and Hagia Irini and so on. Well,
can I ask you this? Why did the Byzantines choose those kinds of names?
When they intended to dedicate the church not simply Christ or the Virgin, but to their most sublime quality and to their I mean religious, philosophical and theological meaning. And but Chora is really absolutely important because as I wrote in one of my articles, which is called Icon as Chora, that for Byzantine, any icon or ideal icon was Chora, was space.
Was space for coming into contact with God.
Yes, it's not as it's crucial for understanding of Byzantine art. Yes. Because they never consider these images as flat pictures.
Right.
It was mediators between the world, our world and divine world. And so
Alexei, let me ask, in the funerary chapel, which is where the frescoes are,
yeah,
on the front, well, I think it's on the front wall or it's on the ceiling, is the Anabasis, but on the side wall, there is a burning bush, and in the burning bush is the Virgin Mary.
Yeah.
Which I think that goes along with what you're talking about, so that's why I raise it.
Yes.
Is the unconcealed.
Yes, I mean, it's
She's the unconsumable.
It's one of them, by the way, from the point of iconography, what we're able to see in the Chora monastery is one of the most sophisticated examples of Byzantine iconography and theological program behind it. So, I mean, to continue horror, because uh, I, I had to think about when some colleagues asked me at the beginning of my well, higher topic studies, some colleagues asked me, well, but why we don't know any Byzantine notions related to the hierotopy is the field of creativity. So
Wait,
my answer was,
listeners,
we did not.
hierotopy means
The creation of sacred space
right.
as a form of human creativity and a kind of art and spiritual culture. Yes, the creation of sacred space, put it in short terms. Yes, and they asked me, well, I said, look at horror. Horror exactly is a key notion and very fundamental notion for Byzantine theologians and iconographers, because what does it mean horror? We should go back to Plato and to understand the original concept of Neoplatonism. I mean, lying in the base of all these mental constructions. We know, well, a very famous Platonic category as eidos. And because he used to say that every material object of this world has its eidos in heavens. For example, a table, a normal table which we have in front of us. It's a concrete material table, but at the same time, it's embodiment of the eidos of table, the idea of table which existed in heavens. And so it means that every material object related to its prototype or matrix in heaven. And it's important to understand what does it mean horror in Byzantine terms. It's very interesting and provocative for the Western rational minds. Horror means the space which unifies in a single whole the heavenly eidos and the material object on the earth. It means that it's Christ himself is not just, well, we are not able to say that he's just a person who was visible, touchable, living on earth in Jerusalem and around, and or he's only the second person of the Holy Trinity with its eternal presence in heavens. So he's both. He's a space which actually unifies, combines in one person. I mean, this absolutely material, absolutely concrete as a piece of bread were taken in Eucharist, and at the same time, we're taking a piece of bread, and we are, with this piece of bread, we are taking inside the second person of the Holy Trinity.
Wow.
So it means that this mystical and at the same time, from religious point of view, most important space,
Right.
well, it's crucial. It's fundamental for understanding of all other things.
Right.
And so, of course, it was for centuries a source of contradictions, heresies, and so on, trying to present this mystery in a rational way,
Right.
or even in more rational. But it's for understanding of Eastern or Greek tradition in Christianity is absolutely crucial.
Let me
And
ask.
by the way,
Okay.
the most mm, uh, interesting and paradoxical minds in the West, they understood this. And for example, the greatest Western philosopher of the last century, Martin Heidegger, used to say that without understanding of horror, we were not able to understand anything in Greek philosophy or theology.
Well, and he wrote
So,
about Das Kind, and it was
excuse me?
his writing. He called it Das Kind. I'm
Yeah,
not pronouncing it correctly, probably, but it was
yeah.
about being. And even Sartre wrote on being and nothingness.
Yes, and so that I mean we are talking about horror, but it's absolutely crucial for
So let me
and
ask you this.
and interesting that usually in the most Byzantine murals they did not represent this concept so clearly. But Theodoros Mitahitas, as a great theologian, he decided to emphasize this major concept, and at the same time, it's key an explanation for all other mosaics and frescoes of the horror.
In the 4th century, when the church was first started, was it named Hora then? Or does the name Hora
We
only
don't
come?
know.
You don't know.
We
Okay.
don't know about these first churches. We have no evidence at all.
Okay.
Well,
But you know by
some
the 11th,
archaeological remains, and that's all.
but by the 11th, it was Chora Church.
Yes, by the 11th, it was already named Hora, and but
I feel like I've been to a theological. Well, I have been. I mean,
but what is very important for us, coming back to the beginning of our talk, because what is the danger now? So this is really
I
unique
I
program and unique
yes.
complex of mosaics and frescoes of the highest quality. And what most probably will happen when the church will be reopened in May, that they will cover these mosaics and frescoes, hopefully not rough plaster as before,
Yeah.
as in the 16th century, but most probably by curtains. It means that this beauty and uh, well, the major masterpiece of the era and something which more important than, well, or at least equally important as Giotto, will
Right,
not nobody will not be able to see properly,
right.
and it's a cultural tragedy. And but unfortunately, we're at the moment we're not able to change
No.
anything, but just to
Um,
wait what will happen, will happen with uh, maybe I do hope then the idea to get money from the visitors, because the mosque should be free of charge
right,
for everybody.
right.
But the idea to get money from the visitors, uh, uh, will allow in particular hours for tourists to see the mosaic and frescoes open
Right,
when the place is not working as a mosque.
right.
I think at the moment it's the best possible solution uh,
Hope
we
for.
can hope. I mean, because otherwise, um, the greatest monument of human civilization will be lost forever.
That's really a heartbreak, Alexei. I'd never thought about that. In fact, I crossed my mind. I believed the guidebooks, and
Yeah,
that
yeah.
it's profound. So I want to follow up on the meaning of the church and what that means for turning it into a mosque. And then I want to follow up on the connection, which blew my mind when I thought about it, that this is exactly parallel to Giotto's Scrovegni Chapel. And in a way, it is the Scrovegni Chapel of the East.
No, parallel, well, yeah, it could be parallel. It's of the same time, more or less precisely the same time, and um, the same relatively small church, fully covered by frescoes and mosaics. Yes, from this point it could be parallel.
But
Yeah.
also, wasn't Chora Church, the work there? I'm thinking of the frescoes in particular, but the mosaics as well, those images of Christ. Weren't they an innovation?
What do
Byzantine
you
art?
mean innovation?
Or a development or a new look in Byzantine art?
I don't think so.
Okay,
It's just continuation, and the time when Byzantine Empire came back in 1261.
right,
I mean, the Byzantine emperors returned to Constantinople, and the new dynasty, Paleologian dynasty, was established for a century and a half, and it was the first flourishing period of this new empire. Well, it is very far away from the glory of the previous centuries, for example, of the 12th century, when the Byzantine Empire was much more powerful. It is already, I mean, even they could control a very small territories, mostly around Constantinople and partly in the Balkans, but very, very limited. And it was time of economical and political crisis. And paradoxically, at the same time, there was a fantastic development and flourishing period for
you just
uh,
froze.
but Renaissance not because they revealed classical past, because classical past existed in Byzantium for centuries. It's very important difference with the West for understanding the general picture, that Byzantium never had so-called dark ages.
Right.
Never had. So that means the revival means just the highest point of artistic professionalism and achievements, and difficult to say why it's happened. It was a special atmosphere around the emperor Manuel II and his court, when he collected a fantastic group of intellectuals and art people around him. And Theodoros Metahitos was a typical figure and the leader of this time. And it itself, it's quite eloquent that such a person as Theodoros Metahitos was, in our term, prime minister of the empire at the
Was he an
moment.
artist?
So, excuse me?
Was he an artist as well?
No, he was not an artist, but he was a poet, writer, theologian. Theologian, we know it for sure because we have his works and his writings. And he was one of the greatest intellectuals of his time.
And
In
he
a
was
way,
involved
what happened in this period is similar what we know from China at the highest point of its development, because probably you know just was funny detail about China and China officials, that any official had to pass exams in poetry.
Yes. If you couldn't write, if you couldn't write poetry, you were toast.
It means something. So it means it was a part of common education. So and also again about the common education in Byzantium and in Byzantine walls in general. It's strangely enough, but it's hardly acceptable and understandable for many Western people, because in Constantinople at that time, everybody had 4 years of common education. Everybody, including craftsmen, any people working, workers, common workers, and sellers, and everybody. Everybody means everybody. And in these 4 years of education of these common people, who, by the way, visited this church and look at the frescoes, and all these people with 4 years, they knew about Plato, Aristotle, Homer, Sophocles, not mentioning the Christian writers. And was something very fundamental and very basic from and nothing similar in the West. And it's not only in Constantinople. For example, in Russian Novgorod, at the edge of this so-called Byzantine wall, very far in the north, very far from Constantinople and any traditional centers of classical culture. Also, we know it for sure, everybody in Novgorod could read and write. And we have a fantastic documents from there that the documents are so-called birch bark letters.
Oh, sure. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Now,
there are hundreds of these letters written by common people of very simple professions who wrote about very practical everyday matters. But they wrote, and including, by the way, women. And I mean, all women also were also educated and could read and write. And we have some of these birch bark letters written by women.
wow.
And it was in 11th and 12th century. Can you imagine the difference? At
Yeah.
that time in the Western Europe, I mean, only a very small strata of the society, mostly clerics, could read and write. I mean,
So
maybe less than 10% of the population.
it's a Byzantine value in Novgorod.
Yes, I mean, it was a part of this civilization.
Right.
So we don't know about the knowledge of Plato or Aristotle for common people in Novgorod. We don't have evidence. I mean,
But you do
theologians
for
and
Constantinople.
intellectuals certainly knew about. In Constantinople, everybody knew. For them, these names were a part of their background.
So Alexei, describe for me how Chora Church was used when it was completed in 1310.
Yes.
What was it? What happened there? How was it? There
I
were
mean, regular liturgies,
okay.
and in every other church.
Was it a local? I mean, did the people from that area came, or also
I mean, mostly people from that area, from this part of Constantinople, because in other parts there were a lot of other churches around, and Constantinople was full of churches. And it had a view when somebody came from Bosphorus to Constantinople, and we can just imagine now, but it was a fantastic view because they could see, well, fantastically beautiful city covered by gardens and beautiful buildings. I mean, organized according the architectural plan. It was a special matter of the so-called Eparchos, the mayor of Constantinople. And from outside, they see, first of all, the fantastic view of cupolas and roofs of palaces. And it was made of gold and silver because all cupolas were covered by gold, but most of palaces' roofs were covered by
lead?
well, by lead, which looked like silver under
Lead.
the sun.
Was it lead?
So yes,
Wow.
by lead plates.
Wow.
So and it was a gold and silver shining. I mean, when people could see the general panoramic view of the Byzantine capital, it was really a visual and practical embodiment of the heavenly Jerusalem.
Yeah.
So as we know from the Revelation, it was the city made of gold.
Right.
and precious stones. So when people coming to Constantinople see this precious image of the great city on the earth. So not in heaven, but they perceived it as a kind of divine vision.
Yeah. And Chora Church was a part of that. And
Yes,
it was a place
naturally.
of
Chora Church, by the way,
mistakes.
was a little bit far from the shore. It was not visible from the
No.
sea, from Bosphorus, but it was just a part of the general composition. And I mean,
Did the church have special attention when it was refurbished? Was it a special royal? Did it have special?
no. It was in a way a kind of regular church. We don't know about any special services. We just know that it was a kind of mausoleum for some people who constructed this church in the 11th century, and for Theodoros Mitahitos and his circle as well. And this so-called Paraklesion.
That's the prime minister.
Yes.
Okay.
Paraklesion, which was constructed in the time of Theodoros Mitahitos as a kind of addition to the old building.
What century was that?
The same, early 14th century.
Okay.
And but as part of reconstruction was to create this Paraklesion, a kind of special church connected with the main building. And this Paraklesion was used as a kind of burial place and a mausoleum for Theodoros Mitahitos and his relatives. We may guess that that was a place for regular funeral services, commemoration of Theodoros and other people, or regular commemoration, and the whole program of Paraklesion, it was covered by frescoes, not by mosaics. And the whole program, iconography of the Paraklesion, clearly related to these commemoration services, which happens there probably every day.
You have that glorious Anabasis.
Yes.
I think it's one of the greatest Anabasis.
Yes, I agree. It's one of the greatest Byzantine frescoes. Yes.
It just, I use it as a screensaver.
With the idea, by the way, it means it was destined into the hell in Byzantine iconography, but the symbolic meaning of the picture was the resurrection.
Yeah.
So it means that it was exactly connected with the meaning of the place, of the space, as a place of commemoration who will give soon a new life after the second coming.
So the church, the mosaics were done at the same time?
Yes. The whole decoration was made in the same period.
The one narthex, I think it's the inner narthex, has those frescoes of the life of Mary.
Yes.
Not frescoes, mosaics. I'm sorry, I misspoke.
Yes, mosaics, but
yeah.
Okay.
There's the first entrance, which you showed me the other day.
Yes, one of the biggest in the most detailed cycle of the life of the Virgin.
And most of that is still there.
Yes.
And then there are only 3 mosaics in the sanctuary or the nave. And the apse is gone, right?
No, nothing survived in the apse of the church. As I said, in the main church we have only three pictures, images of Christ and the Virgin, both inscribed by the word Chora, Christ and the Virgin flanking the sanctuary barrier. And on the western wall, there is a magnificent scene of the Dormition of the Virgin.
In mosaic.
Yes, and it's also interesting because the Dormition in Byzantine iconography had very interesting connotations because it was very important composition. As the feast of the Dormition too, probably you know, maybe you don't remember that main cathedrals in Russia, in all major centers, were dedicated to the Dormition.
Interesting.
So in Kiev, in Moscow, in several other centers, and it's an interesting point. Why Dormition? So
Right.
it's the death of the Virgin. Why it became so important? Because in the Orthodox tradition, Dormition means a kind of prediction of the second coming. So you see
Okay,
that the
explain
moment
that.
of the yes, and at the moment of the Dormition, Christ coming down from heavens to get the soul of the Virgin and to take her in body into heaven.
Right.
So, and therefore the same feast in the Western tradition called Assumption.
Right.
Well, but it's not this. It's not the same. But Assumption is there, but it was perceived by the Orthodox people as a kind of promise of future second coming, because it's already happened on earth. He came down, took the soul of the Virgin, and it's actually what should happen
At the end of
the end
time.
of the world.
Yeah.
Yes, and also it's also very important because it is a kind of landmark and a frontier between the world, kind of new unification of heavenly and earthly realm when all people gathering in one place. And therefore, one of my elder colleagues, outstanding Serbian art historian Svetozar Radojcic, he made an amazing and quite provocative comparison. He said that in the Dormition, we see the final stage of the great opera when all participants coming to the stage and singing together. I mean all main heroes, and and therefore this composition and the feast of the Dormition is so important because it includes very important connotations to the second coming, to the unity between the mankind and Christ, and and several other most important meanings.
Alexei, to get back to Chora, do they know what was in the apse? If you have a beautiful...
No, we may guess, but we don't know for sure.
So there's a beautiful...
We have no any evidence about.
Okay, so there's a beautiful Dormition. There's the life of Mary, and then
it's on the western wall. Probably in the Alps there was the image of the Virgin.
Of course.
In the most other Byzantine churches, but we don't know for sure how it looks like.
Yeah, but then you also have the Paraclesion, which has that burning bush with Mary in. So Mary is central to the whole idea of this church.
Because, as you know, as I have shown last time, the Virgin Mary is Chora, container of uncontainable.
Right. And
So,
Christ is, and being in Christ is entering into the space of being.
yes.
Oh, it's
So,
wild.
this is the main mystery of Christianity, to be honest. And this mystery was very um, touching for the Byzantine mind, and and stimulating a lot of thoughts and images. I mean, how to represent this mysterious stuff. It was a regular challenge for the poet, for the artist, for all believers. How to present it in more rational way,
Yeah.
to be understand, how to illustrate it in a way, and therefore there is a basic difference between, as we discussed before, basic difference between icon and religious picture,
Yeah.
which was also very sensitive and extremely important for Byzantine. So they wanted to create icons. So it means they're mediating images which functioned as a kind of channel from our reality to another one. So
So,
it means it was icon. I mean, it's very important to understand, especially from the point of view of hierotopy, that the icon, ideal icon, is always spatial. So icon categorically is not flat picture, ideal icon. It's something what quite opposite and in contradiction with any idea of flat picture. It's originally and ideally in minds, it's always a space between the beholder and the image. So an image in icon is functioning not inside the pictorial plane, but between the picture and the beholder, in space which appeared between them. And it's a crucial difference, because
could,
basic point for the Western art is, in a way, we may call it theatrical point.
yeah.
You are sitting in
You're
the
the
hall
observer.
and looking on the stage where various things are happening.
You're an
But
observer. You're an observer, and the picture is the action. And
yes,
there's no
and there
communication.
is invisible border.
Yeah.
Always there is invisible border, which you may cross, and some artists deliberately wanted to cross it and to destroy this border,
Fra
but,
Angelico.
but it's always existed. So because it's a matrix. I mean,
Yeah.
religious picture is a matrix, but the icon or iconic image is principally different matrix. So
So
there are two, because I mean the common view on icons, the icons are subdivision of religious pictures. I mean, you may find this, what does it mean, icon mean? There is a special kind of religious pictures, flat, decorative, uh, charged with religious meaning, but it's subdivision. No, not at all. There are two different metrics and two different uh, kinds of perception of the world. in general.
Mm.
So, and it's very important not only for art history, but for many other spheres.
Right.
I mean, the iconic consciousness and consciousness of religious picture, and two different type of consciousness and perceptions of the world. And
To get
you may
back,
feel it. You may feel it, by the way, in Russian classical literature. For example,
yeah,
in Dostoevsky or Tolstoy, and in some other great authors, because when we are thinking what is actually the 19th century was very flourishing period for the literature. It was the same time when Flaubert works, I mean Balzac, Dickens, and well, I mean 100 other writers. But if we would try to understand, to reveal what is the difference, we feel that there is a difference between the approach of Tolstoy and Dostoevsky and all these great writers working at the same time. We will understand that for them, for Tolstoy and Dostoevsky, the most important thing is to transfer you from this reality to another one.
yes.
And the message is that, okay, we see this sometimes horrible reality around, but it is not the end. It's
Right.
not the dead end.
Right.
There is something which behind this reality. And the intention of these people and their heroes too. I mean,
Okay, Alexei,
to get this another reality.
how does
Uh,
how does that work in Chora Church? So when you went there, when it was flourishing, you entered in. Well, the building is iconic, right?
yes,
It is a sacred space, and you go in. Did the mosaics function as icons?
yes, they perceive them as icons,
So you're in the
and
space.
and the same the composition of icons which created particular sacred space, the new, in a way, the new evangelical reality presented in images. So
Was there a
they,
special emphasis on Mary in that period? Is that why they chose these motifs?
yeah, the figure of Mary was extremely important, and it was in a way basic for I mean for Christian consciousness, both Catholic or Orthodox, in different ways.
She's also a symbol of the church. I mean,
Yes,
she's the first
it is
Christian.
the symbol of the church because church is also a container of uncontainable, and uh,
The church.
and also as we know from Byzantine liturgical commentaries, is what actually is the function of the church, at least in the Orthodox tradition, but in the Western too. You are coming in the church for what, in general? Just for pray?
No,
Certainly not.
no.
Not only just for pray, because otherwise it could be kind of synagogue or Protestant
You're
place of.
you're coming to be transformed, and you're coming to
You
enter
are coming
the New Jerusalem.
into the image of the heavenly kingdom on earth. It's the space where you could experience the future kingdom of heaven.
Yep.
So, which should come. So it is originally the place which existed between two worlds.
Yes.
You are inside the spatial icon because every church is a spatial icon, which as a mediating realm should transform you to another reality, to give you on earth the feeling you will be able to get incomplete in future, after the second coming.
Powerful.
And that was the general concept of any church, to give you idea what will happen with you in the kingdom of heaven. And
Which is
therefore this idea, especially important for Byzantium, but for the Catholic as well,
yeah,
I mean,
I got
the
it to some
fantastic beauty,
yeah,
because it's the beauty of the future kingdom of heaven.
yeah.
So well, of course, imagination how this beauty should like was different, and according to limited human perception, sometimes it could be even a bit vulgar. And
Yeah.
no, well, and as in some of the so-called Baroque provincial Baroque churches, well, we can see that there is no
It's
enough taste.
wild, I'll say. It's pretty wild. I've been in a few.
Yes, and
Let's
therefore, I
go
mean,
back.
I mean, the first Protestant who they reacted to this, and they
Right.
were not able to accept this luxury, sometimes vulgar luxury, which
Well,
irritated them.
it
So
got out of hand.
you are trying to sell us something we don't believe
Right.
should be the kingdom of heaven.
Let's go back to Chora Church and close
Yeah.
this. I have to finish packing.
Okay.
But I mean, understanding the wonder of that church, which it truly was, wonderful and full of glory, and also the meaning of it. I mean, when you put the meaning of Chora next to Irene, peace, Hagia Sophia, wisdom, and this is the church of the containing of the uncontainable in Christ. It's very powerful. So what does it mean now that it's being turned into a mosque? It was for many years. Ataturk made it a museum. And it's interesting he chose that one. I don't know what else. I know there were others left. There were other churches. I mean, there's Sergius and Bacchus. It's not as glorious. I've been in it. I don't think you can go anymore, but I was in it once. And which is kind of the first tribe before he did Hagia Sophia. Then there was Hagia Sophia, which we can only imagine. We can see little glimpses of the mosaics that are still left. We can only imagine out of written descriptions that we have. And then, of course, all over the city, there were other mosaics, and I mean, the churches were beautiful. So, but Ataturk picked those two. Maybe they were the two best examples left. I don't know. Maybe they're symbolic in some special way.
No, it was quite symbolic, because these two places, the Hagia Sophia and Chora Church, were the most famous museums and touristic place and gems of Byzantine, in their terms, Christian art. So it was a kind of demonstration I mean, to say it in simple words, to humiliate Christians.
Right.
To
Okay.
say that, we are owners, it's ours now, you lost it forever, and we can do what we believe
What we want.
important for us. And so we need not your museums and your cultural values and so on, but we have our own priorities, and we demonstrate that those don't pay attention and don't respect your system of values. So it was a very, very clear and absolutely deliberate demonstration and humiliation of the Christian world in general, saying that
That's what Erdogan's
you
doing.
lost, well, you have no any instrument to force us to not to do what we want. So, well, I mean, it's in general, it looks not so, uh, not only generous, but even not so polite and politically correct, but it was a deliberate political incorrectness,
Right.
saying that um,
Well,
we have our priorities and we don't pay attention to yours, and you may
we won.
put your tongue where you want. So,
Right.
well,
We can
and
take your church and make it a mosque.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, well,
So, but at a
but
church,
the problem is how it do we lose it forever? I mean, Chora Church, or they find a kind of compromise and an option to show the beautiful mosaics, because most probably, in my view, most probably these mosaics, at least at time of Islamic services, will be covered.
right,
Not by plaster as before, but maybe by curtains, but it doesn't matter. So they will be invisible.
right,
But with some exception, because I mean, in Muslim terms, the so-called narthex or exonarthex are not the place of prayer.
right, right.
And maybe they will make a kind of exception for these places and will cover only the remains of the mosaics in the main space.
Interesting.
For
We shall.
example, in Hagia Sophia, they did not close the mosaics in the narthex.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I haven't
because
been back since they made
because
it.
it is not the place of prayer, even not the place, even it's still the place where you can stay in your shoes.
Yeah, that's right.
And only when you would like to cross the main doors of Hagia Sophia, you should take off your shoes.
Right.
And but they remained untouched. This famous mosaic over the entrance in Hagia Sophia, and another one as
Interesting.
southwest vestibule. I
Interesting.
mean, the famous mosaic with the Virgin and Child and the images of two emperors, Constantine and Justinian.
And they didn't
holding
cover it. They haven't covered
No,
it.
they didn't cover them.
Well, the
They
Virgin
remained
Mary has
untouched.
a place in Islam.
Yeah.
She's
So
the
because from their ideas of sacrality, it's not the mosque.
right.
It's just a porch.
So we have to wait and see what they do at court.
Yes, and maybe they will go this way with the help of local theologians, saying it's not the place of prayer,
See.
so we need not to cover it.
So we'll see
But
what
certainly the images inside the main church,
will be covered.
I mean, will be covered, but as we know, there are only three of them. So
I would say
we will see.
from the point of view of world culture, what is it?
No, there is a I mean there is a quite popular Russian old Russian Armenian anecdote. We have a sequence of such anecdotes in the Soviet Union, and it looked like the question: what to do if the violence is unescapable? The answer: to relax and try to get some pleasure. So, and I mean, it's exactly the situation in which we are now. I mean, we are not able.
Try to get some pleasure.
We are not able to stop the violence, and we can protest, but
it doesn't matter.
With the same results.
Well, I hope to go there with you one day.
Wow, with great pleasure.
It would be wonderful.
Yes, it is.
We were trying to go in 2020.
One of my favorite places. And even it's amazing because even for people, I could see during the relatively long life that I could see many people who had no idea about Byzantine art and other things, were not interested in the matter, in art in general. And they came into this church, the Chora Church, and they were very much impressed. Maybe for the first time. They had no idea of Byzantine art at all, but when they could see it, they were so impressed by the fantastic beauty, just amazingly beautiful what they did, and on the highest professional level. So, and
the first time I went there, I went with Tom Oden, who you know.
yeah,
and he and I stood in front of that Anabasis for a very long time in silence. It takes your breath away. It's one of the most powerful images in the world.
I agree. I agree. One of the most powerful.
It's amazing.
Yes.
So we shall see exactly what
and it's even more important for any Christian of any confession or any denomination that in this image of the descent into hell from the Chora Church, we can see the fundamental grounds of the Christian faith.
Yeah.
All major things are there.
Yes.
I mean, wow. And it's exactly like Ian of Damascus, the great theologian of the 8th century, used to say in his time. He said that if you would like to show your face, take your friend or your enemy or people who belong in another belief and faith, and bring them to the church and put it in front of the image, because it is the best way to convince him in what you are seeing. And what you are, what is your belief. And therefore sometimes I'm saying, there are a lot of discussion about Byzantium, Byzantine behavior, a lot of false mythology around, a lot of negative mythologies, and as you probably know from your language, but in practically in all European languages, the word Byzantine means something negative, or
yes, it's an epithet. It's an epithet.
Yeah, negative connotations. Yeah. So, and I answer, well, look at the face of the Virgin Mary of Vladimir. I mean, this icon, and then try to combine in your mind who these people who believe, who used to pray in front of this image, did several things well when you accuse them. So, I mean, at least you probably don't see the whole picture. So, if the same people could pray in front of the Virgin of Vladimir regularly and take it emotionally and spiritually,
It's a vision
probably
of love.
you don't understand something about these people.
Very
So,
true.
and
I think this is a good place to close, and I'd like to close with one last parallel. I mean, to the Scrovegni Chapel, to Giotto's great masterpiece, which art historians look at as the turning point to realism and humanism and all of that in Western art. And they take it in a way as a turn from Byzantine imagery, which they see as flat and not showing emotion, which I don't think that's fair either. But anyway, it is, they see it as, you know what I'm talking about. It's seen as the great change. And yet when I look at the face of Christ from Giotto, and I see that face of Christ, it's these, I think it's, I don't know if it's the first or the second one, but when you put the images up, the big face of Christ, not where he's on the throne, and you think of Giotto, well, they're not that far. They are both
not far from
living,
where.
well, they're not far artistically. That face of Christ is very human.
No, it's a very interesting art historical issue, because what actually Giotto did, because in his time, and we know it for sure, the Italian art, I mean the mainstream of Italian art, tried to imitate Byzantium.
Yeah.
For them, the Byzantine models were ideal. And the most, by the way, most prestigious commissions, orders, received not the artists like Giotto or Cavallini, but, for example, Tariki brothers, who made mosaics more or less in the same time in Santa Maria Maggiore Church in Rome, the most
Right.
prestigious commission of the time. And
The
the
apps.
Pope wanted to get this Byzantine style mosaic, which mostly were always worse than the originals, as
Right.
usually. When you
Right.
are trying to imitate, the imitation is usually not so good as the original.
You can't do
But
it.
a very important point related to Cavallini or Giotto, who actually radically changed the situation, not working in the major churches. It's a very interesting point. Because they best artists of the time, they did not receive the most important, most expensive, and most prestigious commissions.
And we don't
They
think of,
refused to follow Byzantine model. So and at that time it was maybe the most radical gesture they could make in the particular artistic situation of his time. They said we will do different things, but they knew about Byzantine art a lot.
sure.
And they knew that at the same time were the great Italian artist who used to work in the Byzantine mainstream as Duccio, for example,
Yep.
or Cimabue.
Yep.
Well, and so Giotto certainly knew Byzantine art quite well, but he deliberately refused to follow the patterns and tried to create, in a way, new concept.
Yeah.
And as I can put it, to create and it's important for future, less iconic concept.
Yeah.
So he made a radical step forward the image illustration. And what is his reform of new realism? So he wanted to embody and to illustrate, to create the religious pictures, telling the story first of all, but not to create a combination of icons
No.
for meditation and mediation. And it was finally a great reform to establish the dominance of the Western religious picture for centuries. So
Well,
this is actually the turning point when Western art decided to reject this iconic model of the vision of the world.
No.
Well,
Let's
no,
one last
nobody knows.
close. UNESCO, Chora Church and Hagia Sophia, are they UNESCO monuments?
Yes.
Ah,
They're both in UNESCO heritage list.
okay. So there will be some pressure
Long time ago.
to preserve what's there, even if it's
Well, it was a scandal because also UNESCO was categorically against this conversion, but
nothing to be done.
nobody paid attention to that.
Right. Well, Alexei, thank you. I've learned a lot.
My pleasure.
I always do when I get to talk to you. I've enjoyed it, and not only enjoyed it, I learned a lot. I now know what Chora means, and thinking of the parallels with Giotto, that it's at the same time, and also similar in that they were both kind of commissions. And we don't know the names of the artists at Chora, do we? No.
Unfortunately, not at all.
No.
Certainly, they were the greatest painters of that time.
Yeah.
But we don't know the name.
Don't know their names. Well, thank you, my Russian friend, and I shall see you soon, I trust, in Seoul.
Hopefully.